There are a lot of videos out there with tips to start a clothing line. Some of them are good, some are terrible. But they all cover the same stuff: branding, logo design, set up a Shopify website. These are super important tips, but the problem is that a lot of them are from designers who haven't actually been there or started their own clothing line, which is why I made this video. You see, I've interviewed over 100 designers on my podcast who've worked in the fashion industry, who've started their own clothing lines, and they all come from different backgrounds. And I have over a decade of experience in fashion, including starting my own brand. So I picked the best tips and advice from all that knowledge to help you save time, money, and avoid headaches. I'm Heidi, founder of SuccessfulFashionDesigner.com, and I help designers learn the real-world skills they need to get ahead in fashion and start their own clothing line. It's all the stuff you don't learn in fashion school. And a lot of people don't talk about these things, so I call it Fashion Industry Secrets Revealed. So let's dive in. 8 tips you haven't heard before to start a clothing line. Make sure to watch till the very end for the pre-production checklist so you know what to be working on when and in what order. Tip number 1, you can start a clothing line with no experience. Tons of people have done it. You just need to be willing to tackle the 3 main parts of running a clothing line business. Creative, which means designing garments that people love and want to buy. Logistical, which means getting your designs produced at a price that your customer can afford. And business, marketing, fulfillment, and all the moving pieces and parts that go into running a clothing line business. If you're willing to learn these 3 components and put them all together, you can start your own clothing line. And for step-by-step tips from clothing line founders who started their line with no experience, I've linked to podcast interviews below. Number 2, your clothing line must solve a problem. It's not enough to design something beautiful anymore. Beautiful clothes are everywhere in the market. You need to design something people need. Find a hole in the market, a problem that you can solve. How do you do this? Pay attention to pain points. Maybe you have an engaged friend whose mom can't find anything to wear to the wedding. Maybe you are, or you know, some really muscular guys who have trouble finding button-down shirts that actually fit. Pain points are everywhere, so start paying attention and notice what people are frustrated and complaining about when it comes to their clothes. To learn how one designer solved a problem and got her product featured on Oprah, I've linked to a podcast episode below that you'll love. It's one of our most popular episodes. Number 3, know the fashion industry lingo. Clothing line suppliers like factories and fabric mills get a ton of inquiries. And if you don't know the lingo, you're gonna look new and they're probably gonna ignore you. You don't need to be an expert, but a base knowledge and some of the fundamental terminology will help make sure they take you seriously and give you a huge boost of confidence. To learn the essentials, I've linked to 2 free resources I have below: the Ultimate Guide to Industry Terminology and my Fabric Sourcing Guide. Number 4, tech packs are essential to get your designs made right. Your tech pack is a blueprint for your garment. It includes everything your factory needs to produce and package your garment exactly how you intended and you envision in your head. When it's complete, you're more likely to get exactly what you want. It'll save you a ton of time and money in development, not having to go back and forth because they don't know what you want and they're making assumptions. So go in with a professional tech pack from the beginning. To learn step-by-step how, I have a free guide that'll walk you through the process as well as a free tech pack template you can download. It's all linked below. Number 5, don't quit your day job just yet. Unless you have a trust fund or 3 years of savings in the bank, you're gonna need a way to pay for living expenses and your brand as you go through development. Because here's the cold hard truth. Most brands, even really successful ones, don't make enough money to pay the founder a salary for at least a couple years. All the money keeps going back into the business to buy more inventory, market, promote, and sell. Without a steady stream of money in the early days, you're going to be more likely to stress and make mistakes and push things too fast and ultimately give up before you even get started. Now, I know it's a lot to juggle working full-time and starting a clothing line, which is why I've linked to multiple podcast episodes below so you can hear how other brand founders started their clothing line on the side. Number 6, make time to work on your clothing brand. There are a million tips out there on how to be more productive. Turn off Instagram, wake up an hour earlier, stop watching TV. And those are great, but here's something you might not have thought of. Freelancing. It may seem weird, but there are a lot of benefits to freelancing while you're starting your clothing line. It eliminates your commute, which maybe you've already realized how nice that is with the COVID situation. Make that permanent by becoming a freelancer. You'll get at least an hour or two back a day to work on your clothing brand. You choose how many hours you work. If you only want to do part-time, that leaves a ton more opportunity to invest time in your clothing brand. You'll develop skills that will help you with your clothing brand. Networking, pitching, tech packs, communicating with factories, sourcing, all of these are things you'll do as a freelancer and for your own clothing brand. And freelancing has similar benefits to running your own clothing brand. You're in control, you're self-employed, you're gonna learn what it feels like to work for yourself. And if it turns out you hate it, freelancing is a lot cheaper way to find that out than starting your clothing brand. If you wanna hear from a designer who used his freelance career to fund his clothing line, I've linked to a podcast interview below that you'll love. Number 7, know your customer better than you know yourself. Customer research is not sexy, but it is so important. Talking to people in your target market will help you create a product that people actually need and make sure it sells. You can't make assumptions based on a problem or a need you yourself have. You have to get out there and talk to people to make sure it's something that other people want, need, and are willing to pay for. To learn exactly how to get to know your customer and why it's so important, I've linked to a couple episodes below from brands who wound up being wildly successful because they did extensive customer research. Number 8, don't get stuck. This might seem so simple and cliche, but it is important. Starting a clothing line can be overwhelming and feel complicated, and I want to make sure you don't get stuck. Every step is doable if you break it down into tiny processes. I have tons of resources that I've linked below to help you do this. Because what I don't want you to do is keep designing and redesigning until it's perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. You're gonna make mistakes. That's part of the process. And failure sucks, but it's a great teacher. 5 years from now, you won't regret those mistakes, but you will regret spinning your wheels and never actually doing anything. If you're feeling stuck or just want some inspiration to keep going, I have a podcast episode that you'll love. It's a special episode I did talking about my journey, all the mistakes that I've made in my career, but how I kept going even when I wasn't sure what the heck I was doing, which has led me to where I am today. All right, let's wrap up. The top 8 tips to start your clothing brand from people who've actually done it. Number 1, you can start your clothing brand with no experience. Number 2, your brand has to solve a problem. Number 3, you need to know the lingo. Number 4, tech packs are essential. Number 5, don't quit your day job just yet. Number 6, make time to work on your clothing brand. Number 7, know your customer. And number 8, don't get stuck. Make sure to check out all the additional resources I've linked below. I know you're going to love them, as well as the podcast episodes to learn even more nitty-gritty about starting your clothing brand. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And for more free tips, tutorials, and advice on getting ahead in fashion and starting your clothing line, head on over to successfulfashiondesigner.com, where I share tons of free resources you don't see here on YouTube. I'd also love to hear from you. What was the most helpful tip from this video? Let me know below in the comments. And I have a decade. Number 6, make time to work on your clothing brand. Whether this is freeing up, I don't want to say that much stuff.